What's up, Star Wars Armada Maniacs? Rob Bear here today with an exciting new series feature here on MkIIB Bits. We call these Inside the Mind of a Tournament Player, and this is basically a Star Wars Armada 3-game tournament that was held at Gamers Armory in Cary, North Carolina, where we were on site recording the very first one of the year. It was on, I believe it was on the 2nd of January, 2016. So it was the very first opportunity of the kind of kit series for Armada. So it was a really great fun time for everyone and all the new ships that come out. So everybody was just kind of trying a new thing, and we were there on site with now, to be quite honest, we got a lot of practice in, so we kind of had a fairly tuned list for the time, whereas some of the players at the local store there maybe didn't, and they were kind of taking like a broad spectrum kind of list kind of type thing. So we're going to get into all the army list breakdowns, the players, and then the actual games themselves. But what we like about these videos here on MkIIB Bits is that it's kind of like a top-down kind of Madden style commentary. Now today I don't have a guest to join me in the commentary, so it's just going to be me. We're on a kind of a time crunch, getting ready for Adepticon, just trying to get the content, keep the content rolling for everybody, keeping it fresh. So hopefully we will be joined by a guest panel, kind of a rotating guest panel for the Star Wars Armada game, and also X-Wing. We have a ton of these recorded already too. We just got to get around to editing them for X-Wing as well, including X-Wing Store Championships already for 2016. So that being said, let's jump right into the army list. First of all, game one was against Ryan Chenoweth from Gamers Armory. Great guy, fun opponent. He had a really interesting build. It's kind of like that broad spectrum kind of build. He had an ISD, 3 Gladiators, and a mini Reimer ball, which at 400 points, he kind of ran out of upgrades for his ships themselves, whereas he was putting more stock into the squadrons. So I knew right off the bat that I was going to have to deal with the squadrons, or else they were going to rip my fleet apart. And what I was running was what I like to call them the Kardashians, 3 Mark II Bs with quite a few upgrades. First of all, ECM, Gunnery Team, X-17 Terminators, and Ackbar on the flagship, usually kicking it in the rear, kind of coup de grace stuff from behind. Now, I've kind of walked away from this list a little bit and kind of do some different things with my current Armada build, but back then I was really confident in this build, and I still am. I mean, it's a great build. I go more enhanced armament in my turbo laser slot for 2 of the whales, but and just kind of coup de grace things in the back with the X-17. That being said, I still think it's worth trying to fit in squadrons, which I did for this list, and I had Dutch, which is really good because he has that rogue ability, which we're going to see come into play here during this game. We've got Dash, Tycho, and Wedge. Or excuse me, yeah, Dash, Tycho, and Wedge. And what's or Dutch, excuse me. So you know the combo with Dutch and Wedge. Dutch locks him down, Wedge does extra damage. It's a really good combo. We've seen it in the past. It's good for taking out characters. And Tycho is just, he uses his speed for all sorts of different things. You're going to see that come into play during this game as well. So let's jump right into it and kind of take a closer look, go down to the table view, so to speak, and take a look at the armies themselves. Okay, so here you can see the Kardashians setting up, and I have a particular little style that you're going to see in a lot of these battle reports, and there's the Gladiators and the ISD across from me. So first off, you can notice by the central deployment here that he is going to have to come to me. He's going to have to turn to come to me, which the battle line is going to be roughly where that arrow just was. But I can turn that way or I can turn right. Obviously, if I turn to the left, there's going to be a lot of problems with, me running out of space really quick. So I'm just going to hedge my bets and I'm going to move forward. I'm going to see what he's going to do with his Gladiators and kind of let him set the tone for battle. Now we're playing superior position, so I get some bonus points if I get behind them and get some shots off. The Gladiators are super maneuverable, so I have to be aware that they could plug up my maneuvering lanes. But I also have a trump card in the fact that there's a bunch of asteroids in front of me, and asteroids are brutal in Armada, which everybody knows. So he's probably going to think that I'm going to try to stay away from those asteroids, which I could use that into effect because with the assault frigates, they're actually very maneuverable. So that may come into play here as well, depending on how he moves. Now, from right here, he's also moving very cautiously with his ISD and his Gladiators. He's just moving up 2. I think he moved up 2 with his ISD as well, and I'm just doing the same. I'm moving 2. I'm keeping my options open, but I'm also kind of giving him that red herring where I'm pointing the one frigate directly at him. So he might think that I'm going to try to come up and broadside to the left or the port side when I may actually turn to the starboard, or I can keep going straight and then turn to port and come around behind him. So there's a lot of options still in play right now for my list and also for his, but we know that, you know, for the Imperials, for this build to do damage, he's going to have to come straight at me. So he has to dictate the order of battle in this particular engagement, which is good for me because this list is more maneuverable and it can do a lot more work from the side arcs because, you know, the Mark IIs have that huge broadside capability, and with Ackbar, he's adding extra dice. You know, it's just basically pretty brutal at short or at medium. You're doing 3 reds, 1 blue, +2 for Ackbar, and then if you had enhanced armament, which I don't in this particular case, you would get that extra die. You know, if you're, you know, depending on what command, you might even get an extra die. So you can start doing some real work there. And here you see from the tabletop view, basically how the setup's going. I am moving up very cautiously. I'm also putting my squadrons in a good place to try to counter whatever he's got going on with his squadrons, because those bombers can rip my ships apart if I allow them. So first catch of the day here is going to be he moves his Gladiator into position to where I can activate it and actually fire. So I, of course, am going to activate that. I'm going to take some shots and I'm going to fire. And now this order of battle dictation is actually advantageous for me, because what's happening here is he moved his closest ship, I'm moving my closest ship. There's no way I'm going to get a fire exchange back to that lead Mark II, right? Now the same thing just happened here. He moved up his rear ship, I have my number 2 ship. So here's the brutality of Ackbar slash. All of those dice right there. You get the 3 red, the 1 blue, plus the 2 from Ackbar. Now you're not going to get any accuracy bonuses, and that's one of the drawbacks here because you don't have the home 1, but I rolled hot on that accuracy. And it was a pretty brutal volley, to be quite honest, on something that only has a very limited hull points, which in this case he does. So forced to reroll at range 2 with his evade, which is fine. It evaded into an accuracy, which is going to allow me to lock down even more stuff. I'm going to hit that brace. You know, depending on what else he has, he's probably not going to have a lot of options. So he's going to take 3 shields to the front, or he's going to maybe be able to redirect 1, and he's going to take a critical. So he's taking a critical right off the bat, the very first volley, and we know critical damage is no good in this game. It's even worse in X-Wing, but this one's even more brutal at times. So I'm kind of winning on the initiative kind of style battle here. Initiative being I get to react to what he's doing. He's pulling his ships up, I'm pulling my ships up. I'm in a really good spot here to do a lot of damage when he activates. Now granted, he's got those Gladiators in range 2, which is what he wants, right? But the one caveat is the 1 can't fire. I actually damaged it. So between the critical effects of the Mark IIs, keeping it real, he's not going to have a very impressive salvos going into turn 3 from his particular Gladiators. Now we're doing the squadron game. I'm just really trying to creep up, do a little extra damage here, which you're going to see happen to that lead Gladiator, and that's when it wasn't able to, it was rendered not able to fire. So we're just kind of moving stuff around. I'm going to try to intercept his, and there it is right there. I make the big dash with Tycho. So Tycho's going to pounce. He's going to lock down 4 of those bombers right there. 4 big bombers get locked down by Tycho moving up at his speed 5, which is really advantageous for me because they are roughly out of range to be super effective against my battle line. So going into turn 3, I'm looking good. I know I'm going to get hit by some of his stuff, but I'm going to be able to move up and then move down around him very comfortably, I think, because of the way he's engaging with his gladiators right now. So he's just going to activate the first one again. He's going to move at me. And this maybe wasn't the best maneuver, I suppose, because it put him on an asteroid, caused more damage. He already didn't have shots. Put him on an asteroid, caused even more damage to him. You know, so it's just kind of compounding bad times for that first gladiator there. I activate a squadron, plus I use my token that I already had. Take a pot shot with dash. He does damage to the gladiator, so the gladiator's getting whittled down before I even activate and get to the fire from the Mark II. And the Mark II is going to go in. Again, it's 3, it's blue, it's 2 from Ackbar, and that is just a punishing volley, especially at point blank range. I don't really have any black dice to do a whole bunch of point blank, but man, let me tell you what, seeing 6 hits get rolled against you when your ship doesn't generally even have that many hull points is not, that's a b-hole pucker time right there. And the fact that he's already taken damage from the asteroid, he took damage from dash, it's not going to be a good time for this gladiator. And he asked, after we counted up and we checked the hull zones and the arcs and where everything's going, he ain't gonna make it, dog. He ain't gonna be in Bad Boys 2. So it looks like first blood on the day is gonna go to the rebels, and the gladiator is removed from the table. So very sobering fought. But even worse, gunnery teams getting extra shots against that second gladiator off on the port side, and it didn't go much better for him either. 2 accuracies locking it down means that basically he might get a reroll on the evade dice because we're not at range 1. You know, it's not good time. So shields are going down, taking some critical damage, gonna activate a critical on that, and you know, this ship getting blasted with that much damage is not good. So he is on his last legs. He has lost the gladiator. He's probably gonna lose that second gladiator in either the next volley or the subsequent turn. And the order of battle has pretty much been set. He is maneuvering all of his stuff up kind of in the wrong order, but now we have a conundrum, because depending on what I activate, I am going to get closer to his to his Star Destroyer. So I want to be careful right now. I'm going to activate the middle ship, which you see there. I'm going to take some shots at Gladiator number 3 as well as number 2. Gladiator 3 takes a bunch of damage at range 3. I mean, those are a lot of dice, even at short range. And looks like I probably did it backwards there, but you kind of get the idea. Gunnery teams, X-17s. Now that particular ship's Gladiator 2's shields are completely down. He is pretty much at the mercy of whatever I throw at it. Depending on how many hull points he has, he may or may not survive the engagement. So that's rough. He's firing back at me. I take a few points of damage. Some shields go down. No big deal. Now he's all up in my grill. Gonna take a damage from getting from a collision, and then I'm gonna activate that particular the flagship with Ackbar on it, the coup de grace ship as I like to call it. Now it didn't do a whole lot, but it got 2 accuracies, and they're gonna get through. I'm gonna be able to exploit that to get some damage through. Really doing some work here with the Mark IIs to gladiators that got too close. Now, granted, he didn't have a lot of upgrades on these, which I can understand. That when you're fitting in a Rhymer ball and you're trying to fit in all of these ships, yeah, you're not going to have enhanced launchers and things like that. But I built the redundancy into my Mark IIs to be able to handle those close-in volleys. I've taken 11 and 13 damage from a gladiator and still been able to maneuver on and get out of their arc and keep firing at them as the rest of the line pulled up and delivered the killing blow later. So That being said, I don't think Ryan should feel too bad about the builds he had and everything, because I had those redundancies in, and it just probably would have taken me an extra turn to whittle them down. But that being said, it hurts because he's running out of options so quick. So there you see our squadrons are engaged. I've successfully locked down his bombers. He is only getting a few hits here and there at me because he isn't at that optimum kind of firing distance, and they're engaged, so they're not getting my ships. So going into the next turn, he's going to activate the Gladiator first and try to bait me in to get closer to a Star Destroyer. Of course, I'm going to activate my rear flagship, do some damage there. I'm going to collide. The Destroyer is going to activate, and he's not going to get those sweet spots at me, so I'm going to force him to move up into me and take shots back at him with my lead ship, the lead Mark II frigate. And you probably didn't see it right there, but I got so lucky with my maneuvering. Once I took a closer look at it, I am outside of his front hull. So I am not going to get that return volley of like 8 freaking dice that nobody wants to be at that. I cannot handle firepower of that magnitude after getting blasted by 2 Gladiators. So the Star Destroyer activates, does some work on the 2 trailing assault frigates, and we're just exchanging volleys right now. It's just kind of a proactive kind of attrition type deal at this point, because we know that it's only a matter of time before I get all the points on here. So he has to turn at me, he has to come at me, and he has to do as much damage as he can. Unfortunately, he wandered into some of my squadrons, so my squadrons are ended up doing damage, and then the Mark II activates, and that's it. That's all she wrote there. Now it's coming down to the wire. I've got one last Gladiator to activate. 1 hull point left, 0 shields on the Gladiator, going at it, but he's got an evade. Is it enough to negate it? Nope, he's at range 2, gotta re-roll it, and there it is. Rolled the last hull point. The game is over. So it was a really hard fought battle, I feel like, you know, as far as both of us go. You know, it was tooth and nail. It ended on turn 5, sure, like a full turn early, you know, air quotes, but that being said, he didn't play it badly, except for maybe in his order to activate. He just kind of fed me the Gladiators, but the Gladiators want to be that close too. So I feel like, you know, as tactics go, Ryan, with a few more upgrades, maybe 1 or 2 less ships, a little bit more cautionary play, and the damage output. And if he had targeted down one of my Mark IIs with both ships and the Star Destroyer, I definitely feel like he would have chewed through my list. Conversely, with a Raider in the list, being able to jam up my maneuvering lines is also always a huge problem, because then I start colliding with myself, and my, you know, my basically trying to envelop and do the wagon wheel with my squad or my fleet is definitely one of my tactics. So perhaps if he had recognized that, I don't think he was ever in a position to actually do it, because I was very cautious about it. But you're going to see in one of the next games that I was unable to get away from that, and I did suffer greatly for that mistake. So sometimes Armada is a brutal game, sometimes Armada is a very tactical game, but either way, it's one of the most tactically rewarding games I've ever played in my gaming career of, you know, a couple of decades, I guess. So that's it for this one. I really hope you guys enjoyed the first look kind of in the mind of a tournament player Armada style from MkIIB here. We definitely plan on putting out at least one of these a week for either Armada or X-Wing. And as a special added and bonus, I'm throwing in here at the end basically the whole game sped up and then condensed down into just a few minutes, so you can see all of the maneuverings kind of from a complete bird's eye God's view, and some of the dice rolls, but you won't be able to see it. But you can basically see all the ships kind of maneuvering and all the general tactics and kind of the ship tactics, because as much as we hate to admit it, this isn't a truly three-dimensional game. It's more of a kind of like a naval 2D kind of combat style. So that's it for this one, guys. I hope you really enjoyed it.